So throughout my time of watching and reading anime and manga, I tend to usually watch and or read a specific series just generally off something I see that sticks out to me. And for the majority of the time, if it's not something that necessarily sticks out to me, then it would be for the most part a recommendation from a friend or something of that specific series. When I was a lot younger, I always found myself going online and looking at really cool Dragon Ball Z fight scenes that always used to pop up on YouTube, or like a video of a Super Saiyan 1000 transformation that at the time I thought was so cool and totally not fake at all. And something like that initially kickstarted my liking to Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and just the general shonen genre growing up. And when something like that has such a big influence on just how you decide to go about liking something, it can really just change your perspective on how you view a certain anime and or manga. So as I got older, I started to realize that there are a lot more cooler things to expand on in the world of anime and manga. And so initially I never really cared for a specific quote unquote genre, so to say, and going back to what I said before, I just started watching things that stuck out to me. So an example would be like the first time I stumbled upon one of my favorite series still to this day, Attack on Titan. The first time I experienced something like Aaron's mom being eaten right in front of him, a kid that was helpless and hopeless, was an experience I don't think a 13-year-old kid like myself back then could ever forget. And now I'm at the time and age where something like a genre is really something that's important to me, and it's not just something I use to base a series off of just because it's in that genre. That would be kind of dumb, but it is something I use as a layout to know what kind of anime and manga I'm getting into. And so today, generally, we're going to be taking a look at most predominantly the most popular and my most favorite two genres in the world of anime and manga, and compare the two and take a look at what's in between. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and click the notification bell so that you never miss another upload. With that being said, let's compare and contrast the two of shonen versus seinen. As most kids my age that liked anime growing up, we were all mainly familiar with the shonen genre, series such as Naruto, Dragon Ball, Yu-Gi-Oh, and so many others. And obviously, growing older at the age of 19 I'm at now, I still fairly much enjoy the shonen genre just as much as I did back then when I was a lot younger. But when we take a look at the shonen genre more in depth, I don't necessarily see it as just for the younger audience going all the way up to the young adults. The shonen genre is pretty much for every age, whether you're a kid or an adult, it doesn't typically matter. But when you're put in a position where your demographic is targeted towards the younger audience, there are going to be a lot of things you can and cannot do within the shonen genre. At least a lot more back then, but now it's kind of a lot different, but I'll get into that later in the video. Typically though, shonen series aren't really allowed to show off anything too demeaning towards the younger audience, so most of the time there's a limit of what things can do in the shonen genre. And personally to me, I think that's where it makes the shonen genre go down a few notches, because something like true feelings or dark elements in a series, or even just real thought out things, can't really be fully fleshed out in the shonen genre. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't series in the shonen category that don't have these types of elements, but what I'm more or less saying is that these elements in the shonen genre aren't as presentable as what it would deliver in a seinen anime and manga. For example, let's take my favorite series of all time, One Piece. Now, in One Piece, if you're an avid reader and or watcher of the series, you will know that there are so many elements of real life things presented in a message that's to be directed towards the younger audience. Things like the celestial dragons being more of a high and almighty group of people that think they're better than everyone else, or like the fishmen of Fishman Island not being treated equal as everyone else. These certain real life elements are poured out in a way that isn't too much for the younger audience, but enough for the older audience to understand the true meaning behind it. And personally for me, I think the most important thing, and also something I forgot to mention, but by no means am I trying to put either or genre down, I think that both genres are amazing in their own ways, each of them being able to do things that the other cannot. And it's just something I find interesting when talking about the two, especially the shonen genre, because I'm more familiar with it as a whole over seinen. But quite frankly, when we take a look at the seinen genre as a whole, it's a genre about only, I would say, if I could think back around 4 to 5 years ago, I initially really started getting into, at least when I watched my first seinen anime, which I believe was Tokyo Ghoul, but technically Tokyo Ghoul, the anime, wasn't a seinen anime, it was a shonen, but I don't know, that's kind of a bad example, and now being 19, I feel like at the time I was just watching it without realizing the genre. The only thought in my mind was the thought, I guess, was just a little bit more darker than what I'm used to, but even at that, Tokyo Ghoul could really be classified as a shonen in today's shonen magazines, at least from a manga standpoint. And for someone like myself, the seinen genre, at least nowadays, is a category as a whole that I've been recently enjoying a lot more since this whole quarantine thing happened, and just in general because I always felt like this type of genre would interest me more as as I got older. And the thing about the seinen group of things is that unlike within the shonen anime and manga industry, the sky's the limit. Pretty much anything you can really think of, no matter how gory it is or how censored it might be, anything flows within the seinen genre. The elements that are put into the seinen genre, unlike shonen, are fully fleshed out, so when you're reading and or watching, you really have no setback or something you have to look further into. For the majority, what you're reading is what you would typically expect, and it can also correlate to a lot of things that are relatable in a sense depending on what seinen manga and or anime you watch. Typically, the writers tend to add in that sense of reality in a character, more or less the humanity of things. But in the shonen genre, it's kind of hard to recognize those types of emotions until maybe later in the series once everything is being polished together, at least for the majority. And that's generally the beauty of the seinen genre, not to mention, but for some certain series there are also a lot more you can do when it comes to creativity and the effect that it can have once you typically make that switch from a shonen to a seinen. And we've seen this happen a few times, but the one that sticks out to me the most is Araki's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And as most people know, JoJo was relatively in Shonen Jump from parts 1 through 6, and I mean, I personally have only read parts 1 through 6, but from what I have heard and from what I have seen from parts 7 through 8, that JoJo is quite frankly made for the seinen genre. I mean, I can only imagine if the other parts were previously published as a seinen and not a shonen. And as great as parts 1 through 6 are, I feel like Araki was just holding back. And with his departure from Jump, it gave him so much more creative freedom with his writing and artwork. Also, with the series, they didn't necessarily get the same treatment as what JoJo did, but did kind of the opposite. Take it as you will, but Attack on Titan, for example, at first glance without any context towards the series whatsoever, you can really see it as a seinen and not as a shonen, just because of the dark features that are displayed within its series. And I know if it was me, when given the context between the two genres, I would assume that Attack on Titan is a seinen just because it gives off those vibes and a setting of a seinen series. And even in today's current serializing issues of Shonen Jump, there is one for certain that sticks out from the rest of the other shonen manga, which if you keep up with the weekly Shonen Jump magazine, you would know that I'm talking about Chainsaw Man. And see, the thing with Chainsaw Man is that it's pretty much in the same boat as Attack on Titan, but this time Chainsaw Man got into weekly Shonen Jump and Attack on Titan didn't. Chainsaw Man has the attributes of a seinen manga but just isn't seinen, and it's obviously a shonen. And yeah, I don't really know why or how either, but at the end of the day, both shonen and seinen obviously have their aspects to them that no other genre can really take from them, but at the same time they do have their similarities when they intertwine with each other's genre. And whether or not you like one over the other, they are both really good in their own specific and certain ways. But that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know what you guys thought about the video in the comment section below, and if you want to leave a comment suggesting an idea for a video, I'll be more than happy to do so. I love reading the comments, and maybe if you post an interesting topic, I'll choose yours and make a video on it. And guys, if you did enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Also, forgot to mention, but there's a link to my Discord in the description box down below if any of you would like to join. With that, everyone, my Twitter is @AnimeAugie, and I will catch each and every single one of you guys in the next video. Peace.